Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Pine Hills Palace just west of Orlando, Florida. I'm not in the Extreme Studios now. I'm on my cell phone, and the battery's kind of dying. So if I lose the stream here with RDV from the Great Midwest, I hope he can continue. RDV, I just wanted to let you know it's a balmy 82 here. We're going to get a cold front. It's going to get down to, I think, 60 tomorrow. So, it's the Christmas season. I'm going old school. I'm walking around the corner because I wrote a letter to my pen pal woman, and I hope I'm not being catfished. I was going to send it off, but it looks like I'm going to have to stop around the shop around the corner because I think I'm falling in love. That's what our movie is about, ladies and gentlemen. The Jimmy Stewart early pre-World War II movie that has a lot of interesting things about it. And again, many of you might consider this a Christmas movie. I'll sound like a Grinch about a couple things when it comes to what a Christmas movie is, RDV, as we join this movie. But I will say, for me, first watch, I think there's a lot of positive things to say about this. I'm impressed actually by Jimmy Stewart's performance. I'm not his biggest fan, but I can definitely see here at a young age he has something going with him. I think the chemistry is really great between him and this lady. I think the setup of the movie is quite dumb and idiotic, but we're going to dive into all these things too. But this is a very early Christmas movie, and one thing I will say about this overall, that my net takeaway, RDV, is this: it's a hell of a lot better than a lot of the other Christmas crap that's out there, and that says a lot.
Oh, definitely. But honestly, this is the first watch for me as well. So I was talking to Professor Pixel about this, the other night. He's like, oh, you haven't seen this? Like, it's a really good movie. I'm like, I'm 50-50 because there's a lot of movies I haven't watched that take place around Christmas, especially the older ones, that aren't Christmas movies. And I'll agree with you. This isn't a Christmas movie. It just takes place right around that Christmas season.
Agreed.
But it's a pre-World War II, rom-com, and I thought it was actually really decent. The acting was done well. Jimmy Stewart in here comes off a little bit as a curmudgeon a little bit, but then he starts to wisen up. It's basically,
he has grouchy old man energy a little bit, doesn't he?
So basically, for those who watched You've Got Mail, this is the first version of that,
and the best.
I still like You've Got Mail. I didn't think from Meg Ryan back in the day. I mean, who didn't? Russell Crowe, yeah, right? Yeah.
It is.
It is. It's basically it's a lighthearted movie, with comedy. What really stands out for me in this movie is the cast, the supporting cast. You have William Tracy, who plays Peppy. He's a delivery boy. The way he basically worms his way into becoming the new clerk, after he saves the manager from Frank Morgan's character, who had a PI following his wife, found out that one of his employees was actually, hanging out and knocking boots with his wife. So he's about to bump himself off, which I think is really interesting, because I did not expect that. Let's see, to talk of suicide in a movie from 1940.
I know, right?
Yeah, but because that's really controversial as it is, to put that in Hollywood, I imagine. But yeah, so he's about to bump him off. The delivery boy stops him. He just fired Jimmy Stewart. And what's crazy about that is that scene, and that's for the number one scene that stuck out in the whole entire movie, is that scene when he gets let go. Because him and Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullavan both want to have the night off because they both have a date. Neither one knows that their pen pal is each other, and they're stuck at the shop. They're supposed to check at the window. We get this speech from Frank Morgan, who's basically it was one day out of out of the whole year, I asked 6 people to do something, stay late. This is respect that I get for you guys. And earlier in the day, Jimmy Stewart basically went off on it. He's like, "Why are you being such a dick to me? I've been nice to you. I've been here for 9 years." And even I love Felix Bressart's character here. Petrovich.
Mm-hmm.
He is such a nice, thoughtful man. He's basically like your grandfather comes over and and talks a little sense into you and comforts you. He's kind of that to Alfred Kralik, Jimmy Stewart's character in this. He even helps him out. So I mean, that supporting character, the cast is awesome with this. You have Sara, Haden, and Inez, Courtney. They're all right. They have their own personalities, but they're all nice, kind-hearted people. So when he gets the letter, he gets called in the office, and Jimmy Stewart gets canned. He's in shock. They see him clean all his things, and they're all just like so heartbroken because Jimmy's been nothing but nice to them. You know,
I want to step in here for a minute and give my take on the cast, because I will agree with this. I'm going to take it in a different direction totally about the cast. I think the cast is very well supported here. I think they all represent certain things, and since this movie in no ways I would call it, say, Christian or biblical, I do think it represents a family. So you have the owner of the shop, right? Yeah. And I get sick and tired of movies that just portray the person as being selfish, one-notish, greedy, just cares about money and all this kind of nonsense. And that's the thing that Hollywood really likes to put in their movies, is that, he can't be human or understand it because he's too busy focused on money and all that stuff, going back to Scrooge and everything else there too. So I did not necessarily get that vibe from the owner. However, what I found interesting is if you look at him, instead of saying he's the owner of the shop, you could say he's the father of the family. Jimmy Stewart is the eldest son, therefore he's the one that's going to be taking his place. And then each one of those, if you want to say, is basically like, a child or a daughter or some form of it. You've got different personalities. This is very obvious here. You mentioned William Tracy, right? How he got in there. He has a certain kind of juice. You got the older guy that nobody listens to. That's great. The thing that I thought was pretty interesting about all this when he got let go is this is pre-World War II, so you're coming out of the Great Depression. You can argue about Christmas. And around Christmas time, what you see with this film here that you may not see today in films, I want to point these out because this is one of the things you and I talk about, besides the way people dressed back then and were a lot more proper, and yes, it's a movie, but generally speaking, that's how society was. It was hard to have a job. And so if you got let go, oh my God. So this guy was firm, but he was more distracted because of what was going on privately. I'll say that. He was not a bad dude. He had depth to him, which a lot of these owners do not. And when Jimmy does get let go, it's a pretty powerful scene because that's just not how it is today, And I thought, wow, this is a big deal because the whole story is set up with him working the store. He's been there. He's experienced. They talk about the goods that they have. They're very professional. Everybody's cleaning and this and that. And I thought the line was pretty interesting about, hey, guys, I just ask all of y'all one time a year to stay. And I have 6 of you. The store across the street, twice as big, has only 4, and they do more. And you can argue whether that's right or wrong. That's not what this movie's about. No. But some of the problems I have with it are the simplistic ways they do it. Like she walks in, she's looking for a job. What a coinkydink. She just happens to be able to sell it to somebody and they bring her on, whatever. And of course they allegedly hate each other. This is the most stupidest thing in rom-coms to me, how they act like they don't like each other and all that. It's just not, I just don't like it personally. That being said,
I wouldn't call it
amazing chemistry between these two on screen. And Jimmy Stewart, I'm watching him. This is a movie that if you're watching only a few sets in there, you just watch his face. He looks so friggin' tall in here, and just the acting with his face is tremendous. I told you I'm not the biggest Stewart fan there. I don't hate the guy. He's very likable. But between The Spirit of St. Louis, which I thought was kind of decent, even though it was about the act and not the person, I'm going, there you go, Jimmy, give it to me. Because he was just very
He's Mr. Christmas.
Yeah, and the movie taking a dark turn, I don't care for it, because the only reason why I think you have that in here is to kind of stretch out the whole point between when they find out that, oh, I just walked into a store trying to get a job, and at the end of the movie, surprise, spoiler, no surprise, they're each other's pen pals, except for, of course, Jimmy knows about halfway through. So like Columbo, the TV show we review here on Extreme Movie Show, we know what's going on at the beginning, the joys in watching it unfold and certain other aspects. Here, it's kind of like, and I'm saying this negatively, and I don't mean it to sound that way, the way I'm going to describe it. It kind of goes out with a wimp at the end, which I don't have a problem with. But the joy in watching it is watching all these moving pieces and how Jimmy is absolutely 100% the center of this film. And if you notice, too, this takes place, say, maybe right after Thanksgiving when the season's on. It's not a Christmas movie, but we're going back to 1940 when you go, this is when you started seeing an emphasis on the commercial part of it, right? You started seeing more and more stuff in the store. You started seeing more and more ornaments and decorations and things too.
Holiday Fair was just a couple years away from this.
Yeah, so to me, the whole Macy's Parade and then, all the stuff with New York City and popularizing all that, this is still kind of, I think, fairly young. And it was neat to watch that, because if you're just watching the film between these two and you're not paying attention to all that stuff, you're going to miss that in the background. So I will agree with you. I think it's a tremendous thing here. And it's interesting. even though the owner goes to commit, suicide, and it doesn't happen, of course, because he thinks, rightly so, the only person from a man's perspective that would be able to woo my wife would be this guy, right? Taking over the whole thing.
Well,
it's not. It's the fucking weasel, and that's perfect because that's exactly how it is most of the time.
Like I said, it makes perfectly sense because he thought it was Jimmy because Jimmy's the only one he's ever known has ever gone to his house. His wife was, he gives her gifts,
perfectly realizable. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a great cast. I don't know them all very well, but I agree with you. Very, very, very
Macy's Thanksgiving parade that was going on in the late 30s.
Yeah. So again, and it's
but this was like you said, these are the movies we're going to start seeing where they take a place inside either employees in a shop or right around a shop. Retail. Honestly, I thought this was really good. Just story well. It was me, well acted. I get in a conversation about people about acting today, and people say like, "Oh, I don't like this person; they're a bad actor." And I'm thinking like, "Well, there hasn't been really much good acting in a long time."
Yeah, I agree.
Golden age, I think it's probably the golden age of Hollywood. I think they're way better actors than anything that come out today. I do like. Now there are a few that that are popular. Stallone. Actually has good acting chops. He can do more than just being like Rambo or Rocky, But I mean,
he's a multi-talented guy.
But Tom Cruise plays the same role, the action role.
Exactly.
That's it is. But when it comes to like dramas like this, it's like there really isn't many that that make it big in Hollywood.
Well, they don't make this kind of movie because
they don't.
You take away the somewhat dark aspects. It's wholesome.
Stuff like this is now called General Hospital. It's the soap operas you'd watch.
But soap operas have a lot of cheating, and the emphasis is on the striking aspects of it. Here, it's about how do two people fall in love and recognize it.
Yes. There's been over the years, I think the closest I've seen anything like this or for rom-com stuff like this was been Serendipity with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale.
Gag me with the spoon.
I'll gag you with the spoon and I'll dance in your grave as I watch that movie. It's a great movie. No, it's like I said, I thought this was well done. The cast really helps out. And that's a lot of these older movies. The cast is really good. And you can find a guy, especially said Felix Bressart's character really solidifies this movie and helps out Jimmy Stewart. Especially when they go to the restaurant and they find out he's like, well, look at the girl, but don't tell me what don't tell me it is, or whatever. Don't let her know. But he sees them though, and then he's like, wow, she's cute like Clara. He's like, what do you mean like Clara? It's like, well, it is Clara. It's like, what? Once he finds out, and then he kind of keeps it playing the charade, which I thought was interesting because he's kind of like, well, he figures that she hates him, but he's still intrigued by her. He doesn't want the thought of losing her, also the thought of being alone on Christmas, but. Like I said, things turn around for him after the guy basically tries bumping himself off. He's, he ends up because he can't trust anybody. So he basically goes back to Jimmy's store. He says, "Hey, I'll make you the manager," and he
apologizes.
He apologizes.
He's being a respectful gentleman. He really is. He doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
I thought Jimmy really came across as. The gee all shucks kind of guy that talks really loud when he's older. The lampooning of him is what I was exposed to early on when he was older and what people would do impressions of him. But when I see him older like this, you can definitely see he's definitely a very solid individual. He's a very respectful guy. And the wholesomeness quality of it, it's not something I'm making fun of. No. I appreciate it's there because, again, it's in a tough time economically. Meeting somebody's not, you could argue about the right way and wrong way to do it, what it means and all that. But here, meeting somebody and all that, the real tense moment to me wasn't really the suicide scene or even the ending part. It was about, I'd say maybe about the middle of the film, maybe when things start to really turn to the second half. It's when they both, because of the night off, it's to meet their so-called pen pal partner, right? And so she's in a cafe and then he goes to come in and he knows. But so he goes in there and makes like he doesn't, and they kind of harasses her. And I will say this, writing-wise, whether some of the phrasing or terms they used might be considered dated, the idea is somewhat is universal. They just have such a great chemistry with each other when they're talking that it's very believable. And it's rare that that's captured where it just seems like they're not even trying or acting. And so when they're sitting down trying to talk and they're kind of making fun of each other, he does such a good job of this without being too fucking cute or too much of an ass when we all know what he knows that she doesn't know. So I think that's a very fine line where you could really go overboard with being stupid. You know, I'm not the biggest Tom Hanks fan, and so when I see him, I always think of the guy raising his voice and yelling, and he's not believable. Stewart in spades is believable in this role, and you can see him kind of how the point you mentioned earlier, the way people responded to him around him just more than magnifies what you need to know about his character being sincere, rather than a wisecracking guy that just doesn't want to get his feelings hurt, so he just makes stupid, dumb jokes or talks, down about himself. That's how modern romance is, like especially in the '90s. Not Jimmy Stewart. I mean, he handles this really well.
When I think of how you watch one movie and I can kind of ruin you for an actor, like I've had that before. That was with Tom Cruise. I watched Jerry Maguire. I hated that movie. It's like I hated his performance in it.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, because you had the shouting, "Show me the money, Cuba." I was like, this is the most stupidest thing ever. And that's kind of how I was with Jimmy Stewart. And I'm going to say something really, I'm going to get a lot of flack here. I'm not the biggest fan of It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm not either.
I did not. His performance in it as just like over the top. He even puts on the accent, which really annoys me because he doesn't have that in this movie.
Correct.
When he talks like George Bailey, he doesn't do the weird voice.
And part of it's the writing and themes of it.
Sure.
That's what we're talking about here, not Stewart himself.
So when you talk about people who are impersonating him, they're impersonating George Bailey. They're not impersonating Jimmy Stewart. They're impersonating Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey. So when I start watching him in other movies like Spirit of St. Louis, and I watch him in this now, it's like I'm starting to notice It's a Wonderful Life. It's like whatever reason he put on that weird accent. Because and actually we watched Rear Window. That's another movie really good by them in it. So I said it's not Jimmy Stewart that I don't like. It's just that you'll notice that certain things in movies it's like, and then it's always unfair to the actor. So, like I said, I like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. I think that's probably been his best roles, the Mission Impossible movies for his career. I watched Risky Business. I hated Days of Thunder. But
well, matching up is important. So we mentioned before being an old Hollywood movie, and it was mentioned here in chat by Maranya, and it's so true. We often mention this when we review an older film, is that people had to work their way up. We mentioned with Humphrey Bogart being kind of like an Angels with Dirty Faces. It's a Cagney film. Bogart's just a heavy in it, but he had worked his way up. And when you worked for a studio, you had a contract. So your full-time job was to learn how to be better, whether it's by walking, accent reduction, speaking, dressing, styling, and all that too. So you were a product that was produced, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, if you've got an agent, you might work for somebody and they say, okay, if you're going to look like this, you got to put on 20 pounds, go get it done, or put it in your contract if you can't trust them. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's a different way of producing this stuff. And so when you say, okay, we want to have something, you call this a rom-com. I don't know how funny the movie is, so to me, it's not very funny.
It's subtle comedy, but
it is. I agree, but it's not a laugh riot, right?
It's more like it's got somewhat comedy, but it's more like a romance.
It is a romance drama romance, maybe.
Period. Period.
Because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So like I say, there's the cheating thing, the killing yourself. Basically what it is this owner, the father figure, basically has to die in a sense or whatever to be reborn, so everybody else around them can reestablish their new roles in pecking order, and that includes these two being together. Because
it's more like the way everything happened. It's just like not romance is messy. It's not always happy, and even she says that she's talking about how she had this picture, perfect, version of this person, and then it's like you get disappointed when you learn out, oh, that's not who they really are. This guy, he's been married for how many years, and then she's been recently asking for more money and more gifts and all stuff, and then he finds out that she's
spending it on her sugar.
Yeah. And the guy comes in with the MJF ring on his pinky.
The dynamite diamond ring.
yes, that's it. So yeah.
Look, I appreciated those themes in there. I did not like the suicide theme to it. To me, I wish it would be like a heart attack or something like it, because the idea that romance can be messy and all that, I think is legitimate. Again, we talked about how you couldn't really have a lot of sexual innuendo, especially back in the day, and here. And where the movie really turns around is the pretty much next to last scene, really kind of the ending of the whole movie, the reveal. They drag it out, but the pacing of it is done where it was not just a thing like, you complete me, you had me at hello, and these one-liner kind of things that people remember. Here, we know going into this third act that he's aware of what the situation is, but we see him being kind of respectful, and it seems like he's kind of asking himself, what do I really want in his life? I've been here long enough. Do I really want her? Do I really want the manager position? She doesn't think blah, blah, blah. So he's kind of doubting it. He's not being a punk. He's not being a bitch like some guys are in movies and all that. So what's interesting about it is he just treats her like a woman that's a little bit younger. He just lets her talk, does her thing, and makes a couple quick comments. But what he starts doing is mentioning some of the things that she really, really likes, that she's infatuated with the writer of the letters. And so when they have this closing, they're closing up the shop and they're together by themselves, and she's despondent because blah, blah, blah. And they start having it. I'm telling you, this is a great kind of final scene. And it's romantic in a sense that he's not playing her like that. He's testing the boundaries. And this is such a delicate piece of acting, I think. And I think Stewart's the kind of guy that can pull that off to make you go, damn it, I really can't get mad at you, and you're smooth enough to do it. Because when he starts completing her senses, she's got no clue. And then finally, when she figures it out, it's like, whammo, there you go.
Well, he also helped the fact that she admits and all that when she first met him.
Exactly.
That she had a crush on him until they he opened his mouth.
Well,
and then
the best line is where she says, if I must be honest with you, there was a couple times those first few weeks we started working together, you could have swept me off your feet. And that's how it is. You just have that initial attraction, it plants a seed, then timing and the world and everything takes over. That to me is a little bit more of an intelligent way of presenting how it is. Because honestly, on the surface, you go, out of all the pen writing situations that would occur in pen pals, she just happens to walk in a store that has the person that she's been writing to. That's bullshit in a nutshell. I mean, it really is.
Do you know what I like though? When he got let go and he goes clean out his locker, he grabs his comb. That's it. His jacket. Because all he needs is comb.
That's nice. They're all dressed professionally. I go, man, this would be a high-end store to go in today, wouldn't it? And this is just a store off the street.
It's like going in the Macy's.
So Marania's saying that link for that movie doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It's also on the Internet Archive, I believe, Marania, where the public domain stuff we've posted a few times. Otherwise, I believe there's a copy of it there. I think that's where I watched it. So if you just type up Internet Archive or archive.org, it should be on there as well. This is probably playing on one of the pay channels, but
it works.
We always look for it free.
That's the exact same link I put in there. So
you might have an ad blocker or something that prevents it, or a VPN, depending on your situation.
She might be where she's at.
Browser.
Just look up a Daily Motion, shop around the corner, you'll find it.
The other thing too, I mentioned in chat here briefly. I said one thing about this movie that really struck me is I started watching, I think, some clips on YouTube and said, okay, let me watch the trailer and see what it's about. I'm like, okay. And then when I found what I was going to watch, I was like, oh, this is a really, really good, DVD quality copy. When I started watching, I was blown away because some movies look great in black and white, some are just there, but still the quality of what you're watching matters, because I think this is a beautifully shot film. It's wonderful to look at. Everything is shot basically waist up. They're basically inside the store, most of it, or right outside the front of it, with that little street scene, which is obviously fake in the background, but it's enough to draw you in where nothing else matters except for how the people are acting. So to me, this is an actor's kind of film. It's not physical action as far as like a Tom Cruise type movie that you can excel in or be believable. It's watching the face and everything. And I just thought Jimmy did a great job with how he did it. And without even remembering the lines, like I say, the chemistry between the two, I was like, it made it go by a lot faster than I thought. It's about an hour and 40 minutes long, about 100 minutes. It's not, like I say, I agree with you, a Christmas movie. It's set around Christmas, and it's getting closer to Christmas. Everyone's getting more and more stressed out. People are doing things maybe they should or they shouldn't. Like, you could even argue that the wife, for whatever reason, is having the affair. We don't ever see her, if I recall. So it's kind of like when a dude gets fired, that everyone, you feel kind of good about it. And then that gets to the heart of the matter. What's left over? How are things going to be different? We don't know. And at the end, it's not him anymore that's going to dinner with the boss, because now he has somebody. It's the boss has somebody else he can go to dinner with. So I thought it was kind of interesting how they did it because it was a bit more mature than some of the other ones that might have just been kind of a little cutesy or whatever. So, again, it depends on what you like for Christmas movies. This is not a Christmas movie, but I was surprised because, again, not being the biggest Jimmy Stewart fan, I can't say I've seen a lot of them. He impressed me in here the way he was able to act. I thought, you're right. Who today is the modern equivalent of this without coming across as too one-dimensional? It's not like a Ryan Reynolds. It's not like a this or that. It's hard to think of somebody that's that way now. But again, they don't make these kind of movies. That's an innocent movie that has some adult themes to it about how adults meet. It's actually a very solid movie. I'm surprised for a first watch. That's pretty rare for me to say. I'll give it that.
Yeah, honestly, going in these movies, and I. Not a big fan of musicals, so I'm always worried. I'm like, okay, is this gonna be a musical? Like, because there's like, I'm not sure which ones are. Because like, our my friend Eric Breen on the channel, he talks about Meet Me in St. Louis. I don't know if that's a musical, but I know that there's a Holiday Inn might have. I think that might be a musical. Whenever Team from I Love Comics talks about these movies he watches, he's the big musical fan, and so is Professor Pixel. So I'm always like, all right, let me look to see if this is a musical because I don't want 90% music or I just want a story. This is what I like. Holiday Fair is another example of this where you don't need a musical. Just need acting, good story, decent pace, and like I said, it was great. These are heartwarming movies. I mean, even Frank Morgan's character Hugo Matuschek, whatever his name is, basically learns basically that life is precious.
Yep.
Yep. Again, he never was a Scrooge character. That's the thing. It's like
I agree with you.
Yeah, because if I want to watch a character that's like Scrooge, I'll watch Charles Dickens, a movie, Christmas Carol, or I'll watch the better version. I'll watch Scrooged. Bill Murray. I love that movie. I'm biased for it. Sorry, but honestly, I like this. It's a very very good movie, and here's Eric Breen. Speak his name. He appears. Glad they see heathens are getting some culture.
Well, here's the thing with musicals, and I'll compare it to some of the Christmas stuff that's out there. Obviously, Christmas is a very secular kind of thing, and so that may not be for all people. Normally, here in America, like with Halloween, there's a we take the occult out of it and we emphasize the fun. So some people say, America doesn't have deep roots on anything because we're a young country. And I can understand that from the European perspective, or that all these cute little fairy tales are really scary stories to keep kids in there. Well, I forget the guy's name. I know, I just can't remember it. But the idea here is that I don't like how Christmas movies, Hollywood turns them into a pandering or a guilt trip for you. Writers would do that too, and whether you're religious or not, that's some of the stuff that creeps into like It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street's a little different, I think, but the pureness when it's something like Charlie Brown or Rudolph or some other ones like it, or even something like this that's not a Christmas movie, a lot of people want to ignore, like it has to do something. And with musicals, I mean, I'll see anything with Gene Kelly in it. I love Gene Kelly. I think he's a phenomenal physical actor. I always loved him. I always kind of did not like Fred Astaire. Those are like two camps of people in old musical movies. I grew up, my first crush obviously was Olivia Newton-John. I have no problems mentioning that to anybody. And she's a phenomenal talent. So Grease is obviously something. And then you go, oh, then you have musicals. I mean, growing up in the 80s, you of course saw all these different types of late night movies and everything too. So when you talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you would see it, and the way it is today is not even close to how it was back then. But if you watch it as a movie or a musical, you're like, what the fuck is this? So musicals, I don't necessarily have a problem with, but it's one of those things where it was a thing that made it into movies, and it's like it depends on what you like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
musicals are tough because I don't think there's a lot of great ones. I don't like them when they try to pop themselves, which is what I think a lot of musicals do. Does that make sense?
Like High School Musical, but anyway, when I say musicals, I mean the live action musicals. Rankin Bass will always have a special place in my heart. Those are all
so claymation musicals are acceptable, huh?
I mean, look at the talents, Burl Ives, man. I like that stuff. But we do have a poll going up on our channel right now.
All right.
Go in our community posts. We got the Thin Man, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Speaking of these Rankin Bass, and we also have Charlie Brown, Christmas, 1965. So go vote for those. That'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. So whoever one wins, may the best movie win.
Now this is interesting because Charlie Brown Christmas is something I grew up on. Rudolph, I think out of the three, you get very philosophical with. Always as a young kid, that always I thought was interesting. Our theme at my office where I do some consulting work is Yukon Cornelius. So it's pretty memorable that way. But it's amazing how I would say, when's the last new Christmas movie that came out? And I don't mean
I'd have to check Hallmark. No,
Hallmark
like,
knows what they're doing. They're not stupid.
No, and those are, even though some of those are lesser known actors on there, or say older actors.
True.
I feel like those are getting a little bit better. Like when they first started out, they're kind of like okay, whatever. It's like, but some are actually decent. Where other ones are just the same movie with a new character or a new blonde, and it's the same movie over and over again with a different storytelling. But it's the same story. They change the details. Like of
course.
Yeah.
Instead of the ski resort, it's the golf resort, or it's the or something. Absolutely.
I watched one was like the twin switch, the Prince and the Pauper, but it was like a girl. She was a baker, and then the other one is like she was a princess, and they end up switching places, and it's just like what is this? It's just like the Parent Trap, but like in just it's some are nice. But I mean, I my heart goes off for you guys who have to sit there and watch all 17 Dean Cain movies. I mean, there's probably more now. But
How about Rachel Lee Cook?
The one you're talking about, the Bluegrass, or something, I think I saw it on YouTube, but the other ones, they're hard to find. Like for streaming, I was just like, I'm not paying for a Hallmark movie to rent it at Prime. I said, I'll wait till it goes on TV. But I mean, it's like I said, Hallmark is like some are okay. But yeah, there are a lot of actors that were big in the 90s are all suddenly now popping up and doing Hallmark movies. What's it? Joan Hart did like 2 or 3 of them. Yep. And then I'm sure Reba's probably did one or
there's the country versions of the Hallmark movies.
Yes. Like I said, they're good, but like I said, I'm happy to throw some Rankin Bass in here, and Charlie Brown is just one of the best holiday movies to watch. Actually, I don't think there's a bad Charlie Brown movie that I've ever watched, or Peanuts movie. I have not watched the most newest one where they look kind of like 3D-ish.
I've seen some of those.
Yeah.
And a lot of
the ones I like
on Apple right now.
The ones I like are the ones from the 70s and 60s. I like those,
Yeah, the original ones with they have a certain voice acting group with them that stayed with them through some of the specials in the 70s and going into the 80s and going even a few into the 90s. And Apple's got a few more things on
Rankin Bass also has a few that are in my heart as well, from watching as a kid and stuff. But even then, some of those are like Rudolph's Shiny New Year. What? It's just like, he didn't need a sequel. We didn't. I don't need to see the Old Man Father Time, and then like this New Year's Baby, and just like it just got weird. But maybe
here's why it's weird though. Seriously, you talk about Charlie Brown, right?
Yeah.
The one reason everybody loves Charlie Brown is not because they grew up reading comic strips or they saw them in their childhood or it was on during the holidays. I mean, that's a programming kind of thing, right? I honestly believe the reason why people like it is because the writer who wrote them in the comic strips and then was involved with all that stuff. He used the kids as like I mentioned this is like a family, right? Mm-hmm. With specific roles. Charlie Brown basically is that way in itself. So it's really a show for adults, but it's written in a way that it's accessible to kids. And that takes a certain amount of intelligence to do. A lot of things now today are kind of just slapped together, and it's like I said, very one-notish. So there's not even that extra level of detail to it. So I think people prefer that. And something like Rudolph, I think is just tremendous in terms of a lot of what I like to call that liberty, individual spirit stuff with Rudolph, and how he's different from the group, and how we can make it work, and all that other stuff. I think it's a very socially kind of conscious kind of movie.
Stories. Yeah, I like
right. That is a Christmas type movie in a way, right? So it'd be like if the Grinch somehow explained why he hates Christmas, and yes, I know that he does, but they actually like go
Well,
there.
the
you know,
Grinch
and they
was
don't.
the Grinch was only made that way because the Whovos are racist towards him. He's green.
Well, you could explore that a bit, right? I mean, they kind of don't,
Yeah.
but and then they're living in the collective commune where Charlie Brown, they're not, and you don't see the adults. It's really different how the adults create the world for us to
I
experience the story.
still wish they would have made a grown-up version of Charlie Brown where he finally gets revenge on Lucy. Okay. When she goes to pull the football and he kicks her in the head instead.
That wouldn't work. That would end it.
Yeah, that's how it ends it. Charlie Brown, Christmas murder. No, I think we did that actually once here. Me and I were talking about like what the future version of Charlie Brown would be like.
We did some years ago on Christmas. Why? Because we just we ranted about it a little bit. It was pretty good. But yeah, let's finish up talking about this film here. Look, for my final thoughts, I'll say this. Unexpectedly, a better movie than I thought. I was sitting down going, okay, let me watch it for the show. I was sitting there watching it going, oh, this isn't bad. I'm like, okay, Stewart's bringing it. He's engaged. He's not just collecting the check here. I thought their chemistry was unbelievable. If you've ever worked retail, which is a big thing growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't know about now so much. I think the whole Christmas retail thing's not nearly as big as it used to be for whatever reasons. But if you've ever worked that kind of job and felt the pressures as the season unfolds, I'm still having to do stuff, I appreciate it, because it's not like you fall in love and live happily ever after. That's the fantasy. It's okay, what's next or what's going to happen, and you have to juggle things. That's why I appreciate this movie, because I definitely feel like there's an adult theme all the way through it here, no matter what the age of these characters are going to be. And I think the movie doesn't treat you as a viewer stupidly that way. And yes, it takes place during Christmas time, but I think seeing the commercialism of everybody around there coming in, everybody fighting for the sale for whoever's coming in, just trying to be professional, that's so totally believable if you've ever done anything like that.
It doesn't take place in the United States. It takes place like in Istanbul or somewhere in there. Where is it? There's this ads.
Say again?
It's not the United States. It's in some other country. I noticed that. Be looking at the language they are using.
Correct. It's in Budapest, or as people like to
Budapest,
say, Budapest, which, whatever.
Yeah. A Budapest, a Budapest. No.
This is anywhere, really. That's
no, but that's what I liked about it, too. So now and I was also sad there was no dog in this. Like, it's the 1940s, not one mention of a dog or any animals. No.
There is a Canadian movie called The Dog That Saved Christmas or something, but I didn't want to like make you shoot me.
But there is a dog movie on our poll called The Thin Man. The dog's in there. It's really awesome. So if you want to vote for that, you like dogs.
Or if you want to go full on libertarian, get Rudolph. Or if you want to go the easier route, pick up Charlie. Because I mean, obviously we've got three wildly different selections for you to tell us what to review next week here on the Extreme Movie Show. Anything else, RDV?
No, that's about it. Like I said, this was a first watch for me, and like I said, these superb casts in the golden era of Hollywood. Every time I watch a movie from here, I'm surprised. Well, this is actually good. And the reason I like this, I probably would lean more to this because it's Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart is what drew me into this movie. Margaret Sullavan, I was kind of like, I don't really care. I don't know who she is. She doesn't, It's weird. As a human being, I judge people off the way they look, and I started watching the movie. I was just like, oh, she is kind of annoying, like the way she talks and stuff. And so, but once you actually start seeing her, when she gets she's swooning, it's like she glows.
And you know what? And I'm going to be serious when I say this. The one most recently that captures this kind of performance that's believable, and I mentioned it earlier as a joke with Hallmark, but I'm being serious, is Rachel Lee Cook. She has that kind of energy that I think would be perfect for a role like this. Yeah. If only there was a Jimmy Stewart kind of component, that might work.
Frank Morgan's better known as the Wizard of Oz. I thought he's the guy from Wild Wild West, the villain. But he's got the Colonel Sandals.
I thought he looked familiar. Jesus. Yeah. Oh, my God. And that looks, the third on the bottom there, if you take that as like just an outline, that's Susan B. Anthony. Just saying. Okay, guys, I just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I know coming through the holidays, everybody's schedule's a bit off, but this is something we definitely want to cover. We'll be doing Christmas for a few more weeks. Let me ask you this as a final question, RDV. Well, not that you have to have a complete answer, but where does this rank on your terms of holiday movies, allegedly?
Holiday movies for live action? I don't watch a lot of live action movies. Like, there's so many out there, but I said this is right up there with Holiday Affair. I like it just much.
It's pretty good.
But if we're gonna play what the celebrities look like, you said the lady on the bottom right looks like the lady from Mad TV. No, but no, I said very good movie. The link's over on you can watch it over at Daily Motion, or not Daily Motion. Is it? Yeah, Daily. Yeah, it is Daily Motion. I'm sorry. I use the word saying that word because it's YouTube, this, Instagram, Twitter, even Vimeo is still a thing, which blows my mind when I'm like, wait, there's other options other than YouTube. Because I thought, Google being like, YouTube, you're our favorite son. But anyway, fun movie. You can check it out if you happen to get a copy at the. Curious because like Walmart always pushes their holiday movies, so that's probably where all the Hallmark movies are. They're trying to hawk to us because I remember I've seen those every once in a while too. But I wonder if they have the older movies like Jimmy Stewart, because I know I've seen It's White Christmas. I've seen Holiday Inn. I wonder if this is available currently right now, seasonal thing. Because if it's not, that's a shame.
When you go to just watch and you put in the whatever movie like I did, it will tell you all of the channels that are out there like Prime or Vudu or this or that, how much it costs, and if it's coming or going. And there's a lot of turnover here during the holidays when it comes to movies, and then they'll resettle at the beginning of the year. That's just what they go through as far as streaming rights. But again, you can find us on Internet Archive for free. I believe that's public domain allegedly. So don't want to talk anything illegal here for the algo, but you can, if you want to see it, you're going to find it.
It's also nice to see the Internet Archive is back up. You guys should go donate to that. That site has a lot of cool stuff that basically will never see streaming date of lights. I don't think this movie will ever go back to streaming. I think it might be on Prime, but I mean, like, it's a seasonal thing. But I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Good night, all.
Saturday night, you'll know by looking at Saturday night, see which movie we have scheduled. Then you'll know.
Yes.
Like, you'll look at the poll. Whatever wins. May the best dog win in the poll.
Go Rudolph.
Rudolph's not a dog. What's that? He's venison. All right. Later, guys.